Hello and welcome to the Car Care on Shop, and welcome to one of the most difficult Toyota engines to work on in a specific car, not in every car. And that would be the 3S GTE, the Mr. 2, Toyota MR2. But something about this particular MR2 that is just unbelievable. This is a complete survivor. This car, I don't think anybody's been into this engine all this time. This is a 91 Toyota MR2. We're doing a timing belt here, seals, water pump, and we're doing the valve cover gasket. Just look how clean this engine is. It is unbelievable how clean it is on the inside. Now you may notice some of the oil has like a watery look to it. That is because this car has been sitting for a long time. That is completely normal. There's a little bit of moisture, not a blown head gasket. Don't get ideas. This car runs great and it has absolutely no issues. This is such a difficult engine to work on because of the way it is sitting in this car. So technically, this is the front of the car, this is the back, but because this is in the back, this is a mid-engine car, the engine is backwards. So when they initially designed this engine, they thought of it, oh, the access will be in the front, this will be the back, because you notice here, there is not much else here. Take manifold comes out and that's about it. All your engine business is in the front, and it's extremely difficult to work on this. This is one of the most difficult timing belts to do, as far as I remember, from all Toyotas, because of the location. The timing belt itself is not so difficult. The water pump, though, that's a whole different story. Most technicians will say, well, drop the whole engine and transmission and do it. It's much easier. Yes, it would make it easier once you get it out, though. But on a car like this one, that is a complete survivor, it has never been opened, never been like torn apart, we do not want to do that because there's a lot of old brittle plastic that you're going to disturb and all that. When these cars were newer, yeah, that would be the way, but not now. So we're really taking our time. I have been really taking my time over the past 2 days, getting this bolt by bolt and kind of taking it very easy. As soon as I get frustrated, I just walk away from it. Because you get frustrated with jobs like this, and it will frustrate you. This is when things start going south. So let me show you some of the difficult parts of this job. This is the bracket that the engine mount sits on. This bracket is extremely difficult to get out. I mean, you get it loose and it tells you in the book, lift the engine as high as it goes. You still can't get it out. So here's a small tip. It makes life much more complicated later. Remove the timing belt tensioner, which happens to sit right next to it. It's 2 bolts. Bolts are easy to get to. Going back together, it's a lot more difficult than coming out. So if you remove this, it'll give you enough room to swing it and get it out. But this is very difficult. And then the crank pulley doesn't want to come out because it's in the way. And then the tightest thing to get out is the intercooler, which happens to sit all the way in the back. You get it loose, that is fine, but then you have to go from underneath, get the bracket out, which is very difficult to reinstall, and then slowly maneuver it out. There's very little room. Right now, you look at it, Jose, if you come around and show them this angle, if you look here, well, there's plenty of room, and you would be right. It's because everything is already apart. The water pump itself is not difficult. So here's the deal with this water pump. I will show it to you here. Here's the water pump. Pretty simple, few bolts. But then usually we replace the entire housing with. The reason for that is this screw right here. Yeah, I'll just leave you to look at it and you'll already see what happened there. We can extract this at this point when it's out of the car. But the problem is when this is in the car, you have this much room. You only can put a tiny little screwdriver, and if it slips, and usually these have thread lock on them, that's it. You strip it and we're done. You have to replace the whole thing. And actually Toyota sells the whole thing. That's the best part. Now the customer of this car has been collecting parts since 2015 to do this very job. Never find somebody he's comfortable with. I really feel honored that he trusted us with this job. But the water pump he got is an ASIN, which is perfectly fine. I want to actually show you something on this ASIN, on the original ASIN water pump. It's just the water pump without the housing. So I want you to see one thing. This says, this is the original 1991 water pump. It says ASIN right here, and then it says Toyota here. Let's look at the ASIN water pump. It says ASIN right here, and then it says Toyota right here, but they ground it off and send it. That's how it is, because they are the original manufacturer, and they're not going to make a separate line of casting just to take out the Toyota logo. No, they're going to make the same one, then grind it off. They literally did that. Because this is exactly the same part as this one. No difference at all. But this is just the water pump. We need the housing. And believe it or not, this water pump is actually not expensive with the housing. It's not like the housing, it will add a lot. And this screw will never come out. And the best part is, by the time I get this housing out, and we're gonna take this out, and this screw is very difficult to find because nobody ever replaces it, we're gonna have to improvise and find a bolt that fits here and make this work. And what are we doing? Are we mending this car, or are we fixing it right? We're just gonna get the housing, call it a day. Really, the difficulty of the housing is this one. There's a bypass pipe that goes right here. The top nut, take you 2 seconds to take it out. Not hard at all. The bottom one, on the other hand, that is very difficult to get because you really don't have enough room. In case you are experimenting with this, you take this out, which the dipstick sits right here. You take the thermostat or the inlet of the hose in, and then you take the oil filter out, and then you have a little bit of room to get to it, but it's still extremely tight. And look at this oil filter. Now this car is driving. This is not some car that's hidden away. No, it's driving. I drove it in here. Battery's a little weak. It's been sitting for a while, but look at this oil filter. It literally looks brand new. There's nothing inside. And that's how clean this car is. It's unbelievable. I mean, let's look one more time how clean this engine is. It's unbelievable. When I took the oil cap off and I looked inside, I'm like, wow, we need to change the oil. That's number one. There's some moisture in it. But look how clean everything still has color. It has not discolored one bit. Nothing. You can see the dry spots here because this engine just sits and sits. But it runs beautiful. These engines are just masterpieces. That's the only way I will say it. They are beautiful engines to work on. Very complicated. There's a lot of vacuum hoses and all kinds of stuff, but slowly we're working on this to get it all taken care of. I just got the water pump out. We did have one casualty, which is one of the bolts of the valve cover just did not want to come out. It broke, so I'm going to spend a considerable amount of time on this. You cannot put a lot of heat because this is aluminum, we're very close. So I'm going to put very little heat with our inductor heater and slowly work it back and forth. Worst case scenario, we'll cut it flat, drill it, because this is a through hole, so we are good, we'll tap it, we should be okay. But I ordered the original bolt, and something about Toyota in this era, I want to show you here on the parts. They used to use screws, not bolts. So you have a Phillips head, and this is not a US Phillips head, this is a Japanese one. Extremely difficult to get a hold of if they're tight, and that is one of the challenges. I have a few sockets that are, but they're usually not a great idea, and usually you're better off switching it with a bolt that has a 10 millimeter head. But for sake of originality of this car, we want to keep everything 100% original. I actually ordered this screw because we have one that broke. We also ordered these grommets. These are the only things that we are waiting for. But what a beautiful car. In addition to that, we're doing the valve covers. We're doing the spark plugs, which are original factory spark plugs. I will try my best to show you because I don't want to pull them out yet. I don't want debris going into the engine. If you look, Jose, if you bring the camera and look right in the spark plug bore, you will see that the spark plug has a writing at the tip of it. I'll try to get you a picture if it's not clear on camera. These are the original spark plugs. They've never been out of this car. This car has right around 50,000 miles. They're original. Overdue, because technically these are 30,000 mile plugs. But the other thing we are doing to this car is replacing the original spark plug wires. Remember, this is the old times here. I just want you to see the date on these. Here it is. 1992. Even though this is a 91, I wonder if these were replaced. But the new spark plug wires we got, the new spark plug wires we got, they are, I don't want to open them yet, they are, and they were purchased in 2015. They do have 2015. I wonder if these are discontinued. Look at this beautiful thing in the red. It just, they don't do things like that anymore, Toyota. They don't make beautiful looking parts, they just do them. So the owner of this car actually brought us majority of the parts for this job because he's been collecting them. And this here's that original timing belt, the new one. It has a date of 2015 on it. We got the rotor, the cap, look at this. Who's old enough to remember these days of the cap and rotor and that good stuff? I don't want to take it out of the packaging, but good stuff. Let's look at the original timing belt. I mean, in my estimation, I don't think anybody's been here. Just looking at everything I don't think anybody's been here. Look at this belt. It actually held up. It doesn't have a lot of cracks. It does have a little bit of fraying on the sides, but it's not bad at all. It held up. It's amazing. Now, the drive belts didn't fare so well. These are also the original drive belts. And they do have some cracks. Not huge, though. This style belt always loves to go out early. Look at this one, you can see them better. Let me walk you through this entire bin so you know what's going on. That's the intercooler. That's how that looks like. And then underneath it is a brace, a few covers that we took off from underneath the car. This is actually the fan for the intercooler. It's interesting because this is a mid-engine car. This is some of the piping for the intercooler. This giant contraption is the cruise control motor. It's old stuff, folks. This is the throttle body of this car. It's a pretty cute little throttle body, of course, mechanical throttle body. We already talked about the water pump. This is one of the idlers for the timing belt, the stationary idler. We talked about these two, dipstick and tube. This is a brace at the bottom. This is a brace for the throttle body. This is the other piece of the throttle body. And then you have some of the covers this is the lower cover, crank pulley. And let me remove these belts. This is the upper cover and an idler and a horn that was in the way. And then the engine mount and then the painful mount, I will call it that. This is the valve cover, and look how clean it is on the inside. You see a little bit of remnants of that moisture. But it's a beautiful condition, very clean. And one thing about moisture, folks, sometimes you pull the cap off of your car and you'll see white. You can see it here, how it's trying to escape through the cap. That is not a blown head gasket. That's what happens to cars when you start them, like drive them for a short period of time, and then shut them off, and it was humid, and then you stored them for a long period of time. That humidity inside the engine just rises to the top, and it does that, and the cylinder head only, the oil will not have a lot of this. And then going back, this is the back cover. These are the cam gears, and the rest is parts. This is a very important thing you do. So the oil pump on this is driven by the timing belt. Seal and O-ring, very important to replace it. We got some spark plugs, air filter. I think this is an aftermarket mount that he was not sure he wanted to install it. Thermostat. This is a rotor. This is one of the idlers or for the tensioner, which is actually this one. It's a new one. It's not an original one. They had to buy an aftermarket one because it's not available. And then timing belt. And we showed you the rest of the stuff. It's just a beautiful, beautiful car and beautiful job. But everything in this beautiful car is original. I think we've used this car in a video when we put it next to a Celica. It's been in the shop all this time. We've been kind of preparing and talking, and I wanted this place to be finished before we jump into this shop, so we can have the clean area. I can have a quiet area where I can really dig into this, because this car deserves it. Just look at this beautiful engine. As much of a difficulty it is to work on this engine, it is just a pleasure to me. You know, I'll be honest, I don't want to say fighting this thing for 2 days, but I spent a considerable amount of time, and I tried to be as patient as possible because this car deserves it. And I keep reminding myself, this is such a beautiful car. It's worth the struggle, if you would. But at this point, today is Friday, we're filming this video. We're actually about to go home pretty soon, on time, thankfully. I'm gonna wait for that one screw to show up, some of the grommets, then we're gonna start assembling it. It's gonna be a while, and by the time this video comes out, hopefully we'll be done with this car. I'll show you a little clip of this engine running. But folks, I will say one thing. Most people will look at this and they'll say, these are the golden era of Toyota. This is the time when they used to build things and build them right, and they don't do that anymore. I honestly don't think that is the case, just so you know. Any little Corolla engine today will make almost the same power as this, without the turbo, without all this complication. That's how technology came about all these years. But looking at this, to me, the special thing about this car is how preserved it is. I mean, that is a very clean engine. I've seen cars with low miles that are old, and usually they're not taken care of properly. This one is. And it's a beautiful to look at how complicated things are and how technology solved all these complications. Case in point, look at this giant contraption for the cruise control, or the cables, all the components for the cruise control, and all this stuff. It is just unbelievable, the level of complication for that. And then all the intake hoses and all this giant complication, that's all gone in modern cars. We have other stuff that are complicated, but this stuff is all gone. All the vacuum hoses and the vacuum switches, they're all gone. We don't need them, because that's how technology have advanced. But it's still, what a beautiful engine. And huge shout out to the owner for first trusting us to work on their car. Second, actually giving us the opportunity to work on such a beautiful engine. Very challenging. To me, this is one of the most challenging jobs you'll ever do on a Toyota. I think LS460 engine removal, that may be next, but usually Toyotas, you don't have a lot of very difficult job after you've kind of been through the paces and done everything, but this is one of the most challenging ones. And not removing the engine makes it a lot more difficult, but we're committed. We're going to get it done and give it back to the customers so they can enjoy it this summer, because it's such a beautiful car. It drives great. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.